Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wingcat Sports. We are going to do a Lions offseason overview just before the season starts. Go over what they did this offseason and our thoughts fully on the offseason in a whole. So I'll go over the free agency signings we did first. First up was Cam Sutton, right? He was signed him for 3 years, $33 million. Not that bad of a contract, $21 million guaranteed. The next one was David Montgomery. He will be replacing Jamal Williams. We signed him to 3 years, $18 million at $8.75 million guaranteed. So not a bad deal there either. You also got C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I would say, who is your biggest signing of the offseason.
Yeah.
For 1 year, $6.5 million. He might be back after this year if we play well. Marvin Jones is also coming back for 1 year, $3 million. You got your backup in Teddy Bridgewater. Again, 1 year, $3 million. Graham Glasgow is coming back as that depth piece for your O-line, one of your top O-lines in the league. 1 year, $2.75 million. Emmanuel Mosley also is coming here for 1 year at $6 million. And Jalen Reeves-Maybin is also here for 1 year at $1.75 million. All the rest of the contracts that got signed, they got let go before the season started, so I'm not even going to go over them. But like I said, I think your biggest one of the offseason signing-wise was CJ. Right? He is going to help your secondary a lot.
From what we saw in camp, that was the most glaring difference, is the intensity from the defensive backfield. C.J. Gardner, Branch, and Sutton. Those three, I think, are going to make a monster difference, along with hopefully Mosley, who also comes back and provides a big upgrade at that position. I mean, that's a pretty good foursome, along with Kirby Joseph.
You Branch, got but we'll get more into Branch later on.
I think that is where I see the biggest upgrade at. Also, I've noticed in the preseason and in camp, John Kaminsky's just tearing it up. I mean, that guy has really been playing really great.
Yeah,
I'm expecting a big leap from him and the D line. The big question mark on D is going to be, linebacker.
Yeah. That would be your big question. Any thoughts on the free agencies before I get into re-signings?
No, we just, for the longest time, the Lions had one of the worst secondaries in football. I mean, they gave up a lot of points, and this year they seem to have gotten. They seem to have changed their tune somewhat.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't seen them play yet, but there were some much needed upgrades with Sutton, with Gardner Johnson, and like you said, with Joseph back there. Hopefully Mosley can contribute. It is vastly improved what it was.
Yeah.
And I have no idea why they brought back Will Harris, but they did.
Yeah, I'll get more into the numbers of that when we get to it. But there's some people where going into the re-signings, right?
Yeah.
You signed Alex Anzalone for 3 years, $18.75 million, $9 million guaranteed.
I think he deserves it. Which not the greatest linebacker in the world, but he's a tough, good player.
He is the one that leads the defense.
He's an important part of the defense.
Yeah.
He's a solid role player.
Yes, he leads the defense, and I think that's a good reason why they probably brought him back. John Kaminsky, as you were mentioning, right? They brought him back to a 2-year deal, $8.5 million, $4 million of a guaranteed.
Just a no-nonsense, tough, gritty player.
He was doing really good in the preseason.
Plays every down. And kind of goes relatively unnoticed a lot of times,
right. And he's one of the guys who really stated how much he wanted to come back here.
Yes.
That's another big difference. Like I said, you have a lot of guys wanting to play for Dan Campbell, wanting to play for this organization. He came from Atlanta.
Okay.
And we picked him up last year.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Will Harris, as you mentioned, right, wasn't too happy about his play. We only got him for 1 year, $2.52 million.
Well,
so.
I'll let his play do the talking for me. Will Harris sucks.
Yeah. Your next guy you re-signed was Isaiah Buggs, right? 2 years, $4.5 million, $2 million of a guaranteed. And then Craig Reynolds, who they let go but brought back after the preseason.
Yep.
1 year, $1 million. The only other guy you re-signed this offseason that is probably not going to be playing at all is Nate Sudfeld. You only signed a $1.6 million deal for 1 year. But he is not going to be on the team after this year, with Hooker being your backup as we get into.
I think he got hurt on purpose just so we'd have to pay him.
If you were Nate Sudfeld and you were on the practice squad and you were still making $1.5 million, you'd be laughing your ass off.
I love it, man. I love it.
So,
yeah.
Notable players that are gone from our team, right? Badgley did come back. He was the first one on this list that I have, but he did come back. You lost Michael Brockers on the defensive line.
Who? That guy was a no-show every game. He was way overpaid.
Well, there, talk about a guy who's just picking up a check.
He was either hurt or you didn't even know he was on the field half the time.
We got him for his veteran leadership.
Yeah.
DJ Chark.
He showed his leadership.
DJ Chark, I got nothing against him. He was a solid player. And
he made the big catch to
I
beat
think
Green
that
Bay.
I think Carolina's going to enjoy having him. He was a solid guy.
Justin Jackson, our return man on the kickoffs and our third running back, randomly retired in the preseason. So we don't have him on the team anymore.
Well, we probably returning will Sterling Thomas will be back there. Alexander will be back there,
yep.
Right?
One of our favorite names from last year, watching his many passing interference and holding, Uware is gone.
Warrior, he sucked too.
He plays for the Giants now, right?
Oh, he got let go from the Giants.
Yeah.
Oh,
he was terrible.
Yeah,
he was terrible.
He was bad.
Other guy, a good story from last year, back up to our O-line, but Dan Skipper, when he had his few good games on our O-line
He
last
got
year.
let go?
He is not on our team.
Oh.
Bigger names, right? Jamal.
Did he go somewhere else, by the way?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Jamal Williams, right?
Yes.
It's a little bit upsetting with how he went, but with how he was talking.
Yeah, that kind of made it easier to see him go because it was I think most of the fan base before his mouth started opening really would have liked to have seen him back. But you can't argue with the fact that Montgomery is a younger, better version.
He's a better back.
The only reason I wanted to keep Williams was because of his energy, right? You offered them the same contract you offered Montgomery. Yeah. He turned it down for more money, got less from the Saints.
Yeah. Me personally, I didn't like his antics. He ran his mouth a lot.
It is what it is. I mean, he was a productive player. That's all I care about. And he did what he had to do.
And now the biggest cut from the offseason, while notable losses, was our suspended candidates from the gambling that was going on. Cephas barely even played anyways.
Not Quintez Cephas.
CJ Moore, right off of our special teams.
Nobody knows.
And then
who they are.
You had Barry Hill, which was a wide receiver that was lately picked up in
Barry Hill is his whole last name.
There's one name I didn't hear you say, and that was Trinity Benson. He's still on the team?
No, he's not on the team. He's not.
Again,
did he ever play?
We've invited him back to try out for the team like 4 times.
Right.
So, but those are your notable cuts. I think the worst. Yeah. I think the worst of those for the team would be Jamal, just for that energy standpoint and Chark.
But yeah, no one denies that Jamal wasn't a great player for us, and big part of our success. But you gotta. Like in today's game, you can't really be loyal to anybody. You're just trying to build the best team you can. They offered Jamal a contract and he didn't want it.
His agent screwed him over technically for staying here, but he ran his mouth afterwards. And now we kind of don't want him here. And when we're going to face him later this year, we'll see what happens.
I think we're interested in seeing what David Montgomery can do.
Yes.
And Jamar Gibbs. I think that's a definite upgrade.
David Montgomery had some good games against us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going into the trades that happened this offseason, not a lot happened, but there were some trades. We traded Swift away, right? So we have our whole new running back room. You got a couple picks for him late in the rounds, and you did use those picks as trades as well. You also dealt Jeff Okudah off the team. He did get hurt in Atlanta during the preseason. You did get a 5th-round pick for him this year. So mostly draft picks.
Okudah had his moments where he shined, but for the most part, I think there was probably some behind-the-scenes going on. I don't think the coaches had any faith in him. That was the big thing. And as far as Swift goes, he's got a lot of talent. I can't deny that, but he didn't even finish the season with us.
Nope.
He was always hurt.
Well, Swift
had a very good final game in Green Bay
until he got elbowed in the head.
He was always hurt. But he played for us 3 years. He never played a full season.
That's why running backs are not getting paid. One of the big reasons.
The other trades that happened, right? We acquired wide receiver Denzel Mims, right?
Cut him.
And with that cut, as I was going to get into, there was a condition that he made the team, right? And Jets would get that pick. Well, we got Jets' 7th round pick, plus we keep our pick. So we actually gained a pick by cutting it.
Nice.
I'll take it.
Which is the good part of that trade. And then the last trade that happened this offseason, which is how we acquired our current kicker and probably who will start, even though they haven't announced our starting kicker for the year yet. We set a 7th round pick in 2026 to the Jaguars to acquire Riley Patterson, who is a very accurate kicker, had one bad game, but does not have that big of a distance on his
Not a lot of range.
So, but those were your trades of the offseason, right? None of them were really terrible. You got rid of a couple players who weren't doing the best for the team and acquired a couple to potentially do good for our team. So overall, it's good. Some extensions and restructures that happened in the offseason. Vaitai agreed to a pay cut and removed any more years on his contract. So he is not on contract for next year. That cut some money out. Khalif Raymond did sign a 2-year extension. He is our punt returner and a good wide receiver.
Solid guy.
Romeo Okwara accepted a pay cut, creating $9 million in cap space. And also Charles Harris took a $3 million pay reduction. So again, people are taking pay cuts to make sure they are staying here, right? They want to play here. And also they probably were told they were going to get cut if they did not take the pay cut.
Okwara's been on the bubble for a while, I think. With Paschal and Hutchinson and Kaminsky, I mean, we're pretty much stacked with edge rushers. So, as far as Okwara goes, I think he's got a lot to prove this year, or he'll be gone.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of players that have been going, and we're going to have a good amount of cap space going into next year to re-sign the players, right? The current two that they are having good talks with are Goff and Jonah Jackson, right? So we'll see what happens with that. Will Goff deserve his money this year? I don't expect them to re-sign Goff probably till midseason, if it happens.
Yes.
Right.
And if he proves himself this year, pay him his money.
Yeah, and you have to also, when you look at this, you have to leave room, in my opinion,
or trade to San Francisco for a first rounder.
Well, no, but
they take Quinn and Hooker, man. That's an idea.
But the money I think you need to leave open is for St. Brown, and you need to leave money open for Sewell.
Yeah.
Right? They are the new faces of this team, right? And then you got to think after that, Hutchinson. Your new faces of this team are Sewell, Hutchinson, and St. Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you can argue with that.
Jared Goff has to be a face, too.
I think your new faces, as in, like, who you've brought into this organization by drafting them, and you are yourself developing, are those three. Right? Draft-wise, this year, when we go over the draft, right, the shocking first pick that we had after we traded back twice and passed on Jalen Carter, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Even if he ends up doing well, I still really don't agree with the pick. I don't think we should have gone running back. Defense should have been our first priority.
No, it's
Jalen Carter would have been a nice addition, but we just didn't know what was going on with his head. Obviously, Holmes and Campbell saw something. They saw some warning signs and chose. So, like other teams did. There were 13 other teams that passed them over.
You realize this team could have the Philadelphia Eagles inside defensive line right now. They could have drafted Jordan Davis last year.
Yeah.
They took Jameson Williams.
That was another big
mistake. They could have probably taken Jalen Carter this year, which could turn into a monster mistake, and had those two inside.
With Hutchinson.
Can you imagine that line? Woo! But it could happen.
But from what I've heard and from what I've watched with the Lions YouTube channel and that, that Jahmyr Gibbs was their pick, whether they were staying at 6, whether they were at 10, or where they landed at 12. They were sold on Gibbs.
We'll see.
So we will see what happens.
They just wanted to get rid of, I think it was Swift. They just were like,
we'll see.
Swift,
they felt
he
high
certainly is a multi-dimensional player that can do many different things.
Now, the only reason I think they took him when they did, they were worried that another team was going to pick him up. I think the Patriots were the ones that were looking at picking him up, and that's why we didn't draft him at 18, because they were worried that they were not going to be able to get him where we really did want them. Your next pick, which that some feel is also a reach to where you got him at, is Jack Campbell, which through the preseason I think has proved that might not be necessarily the case because of how he has played.
It still probably would have been a reach. They could have probably gotten him in the second round, like you said. And, we'll see. We'll see. This guy to justify that position, he better be close to a Pro Bowler every year.
Yeah.
So we'll see if he is.
Your next guy on the list, we got with our first pick in the second round, Sam Laporta, our new face at tight end, right? I don't know how much he's going to play with Brock Wright being there too, even though Brock Wright ain't that amazing, but he's a decent tight end, and it might give Laporta a little bit more time.
Again, a guy we probably could have gotten in later rounds, but he's supposedly they saw something in him, and we trust Holmes and we trust Campbell.
Yep.
So, and it fills a need without having Hawkinson, and they just got rid of Zylstra.
Well, Zylstra got hurt. He's still on the roster.
I think it's really
but
important.
when you look at Hawkinson, right, recently in the news with Hawkinson too, getting that extension, would you have wanted to give him $17 million? No. That was a great trade they did halfway through the year.
Nope,
and
not going to give him that.
You did better after you got rid of Hawkinson.
Oh, right. I think not signing Hawkinson was one of the better things that Brad Holmes has done, not giving him that extra money. Laporte is going to be really important. I think him, St. Brown, and and Gibbs are going to be the guys you're looking for to put us over the top.
Yeah.
If Jameson Williams comes back and shows that he is the guy on this team to stretch the field, then even more so.
Yeah. Your other pick right in the second round, which people feel is the steal of the draft for us, is Brian Branch in the late second round. A lot of people thought he would go potentially in the first round.
Yep.
So you get him in the second
Why
round.
He was overlooked, I don't know.
So when you really look at it, right, if you would have drafted Gibbs where Brian Branch was and Brian Branch where Gibbs was, would you have complained about the draft as much?
Nope.
No.
So
no, I think, like I said, from what we've seen so far, Branch might be the steal of the draft. So we'll see.
Moving on to the next pick is your future QB potentially, Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee. Will he play? We shall see. It all depends on what they do with Jared Goff.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
I don't see Hendon Hooker playing very much, if at all.
No, he probably won't play that much.
No, he'll end up probably going to another team.
Yeah, I think Hendon
I like him.
Hendon Hooker is our thing where we're that's going to determine watching Goff. He could be our starting quarterback next year if we don't want to sign Goff.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, it's a good gamble there at that position.
Your next third round pick, which you traded up for, was Broderick Martin, which should be potentially okay at the defensive line.
A big what if.
See.
Yeah.
He's a project guy.
Yeah, he's a project guy, and we'll talk about him in a couple of years maybe.
Yep. And then round 5, you got Colby Sorsdal, who could be a very good offensive lineman.
Of what I've heard about him, he's played great in the preseason.
Right.
And they really like him.
Right. And he might be there when we need to, the contract comes up to one of these guys and we say, hey, we got Corey here. We can plug him in.
Yep. And then the very last guy you got, Antoine Green out of North Carolina. He has made the team. Right, we weren't sure if he was going to make the team.
Squad guy?
No, he's on the roster.
Okay, well, I think that final game against Carolina really sealed it for him. The guy runs like a deer, and he's got good hands, and he's a big-bodied receiver. He's something you want.
Right.
So-
I mean, he's got speed. I mean, you're a 7th round pick and you make the team. That's a hell of an accomplishment.
I was hoping for Chase Cota to make the team, but he did not. But I'll take
Well,
Antoine.
we need
I
somebody.
know
to stretch the field.
Drummond is on the practice squad
Yeah.
between the two of them. So that is who at least somewhat stayed on the team, right? You had your coordinators this offseason have head coaching interviews, but they have both stayed, which was a fantastic thing for Ben Johnson to stay, right? He is going to run the offense again.
Right.
It should look good. On top of you hired John Fox as a senior defensive assistant to help Aaron Glenn, right? He was a head coach for the Bears and the Broncos.
Ben Johnson's huge because, like you said, again, here's another person who could have gotten a head coaching gig. Probably
He was in the running for Carolina. They believe it was his job.
He wanted to play. He wanted to finish the job here. And that says a lot.
I think your biggest coach leaving, right, was your running back coach, which added a lot of energy with Drew Staley, right? He went to the Panthers. So you lost out on him, but you did.
But he didn't go there because of any animosity. His home's there. He's closer to his family.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's why he went there.
But so far, I think over the offseason, you did pretty good.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's been. I don't.
You have improved the team
better. I don't think you could
on paper you've improved the team. Let's see what you got come the regular season.
Yep. Come on Thursday when we face the Chiefs, we will see how this team is going to play all together. None of the starters really played in the preseason besides some of the rookies getting their reps. But that last game, anyone who was starting, they did not start that game.
Yep.
So just to avoid that risk of injury. And then the biggest thing that happened this offseason, right? Jameson Williams, 6-game suspension for gambling in a hotel on a road trip.
Well, did we talk about Teddy Bridgewater too?
Teddy Bridgewater was part of the re-signings.
Yes. Okay.
So
For once, we finally got a solid backup.
Yes.
For the first time in a long time.
I don't think
So, God
forbid,
forbid, Goff goes down. It's not, we're not losing cabin pressure.
That was probably, well, like I said, if you were QB wise, that's really good. But you helped your defense a lot with the signings. I don't know
And Jameson Williams,
necessarily.
He
will have to prove himself.
I
when he
think
gets
people
off
are
suspension.
getting impatient with him. They were looking forward to him playing a full season, and then this happened, and you got to go 6 more games without him, and we haven't lost faith yet. We just
I think if he had done something more egregious of that, but it's just been one unfortunate thing after the next.
Yep.
And I just feel bad for the kid in some ways.
He will have to prove himself this year.
Right.
If he does not play well at all this year, he might be out.
Yep. I don't want to use the B word.
But that would
the guy.
go down as a huge mistake, right, by Brad Holmes. And hopefully,
every GM makes them.
Right. You're
every
right,
GM
you
makes
are right, but that's glaring at this time because we could have had somebody really good.
Yep. But with that being said, right, that is what your off season was like for the Lions. It was pretty good, in my opinion. If you liked the video, right, like, comment, subscribe, share the video out there. Follow us on Instagram for our trip to Kansas City as we are going there for the game. And until next time, hope to see everybody soon.
Go Lions.